I'm really sorry for people who going through the elimination process to find a problem with their engine. So that's why I'm making this series for new owners of BMW or any car, just to make them a bit confident with the engine and some basic things. That's why I'm making this series, to explain you some basic things. This is not advanced stuff. Some people know that stuff, they know how to approach their car, so for these people nothing new. But for people who, like I said, they just bought the car and they're trying to fix it themselves, and also I'm getting loads of messages, emails, Facebook Messenger, everything about rough idle. What do you think about this? That's why I'm making the series. Please go step by step. It won't cost you much, because instead of swapping parts, you should do more tests. I always say that to my friends or any new people who contacting me. Do more tests than buying more parts. That's my procedure of finding the problem. In this series I'm explaining with basic tools, well, maybe not basic, but what to do when you're having a problem. Don't buy parts, do tests. If you do tests, you will rule out some things and you can proceed forward instead of jumping between. So I will explain you now some basic things. So guys, yeah, first thing you want to check is actually the battery connection, like clamps, if they loose or not. They can't be loose. If you have one of the clamps loose, you're probably gonna be having a jerky car. When you're accelerating, it's fine. When you're letting the foot off the pedal, it's actually idle drop or something, like power loss. So make sure they are tight. And later you want to check is the voltage of the battery when the car is not running, like next morning, cold morning, whatever, it's hot, not hot. You want to check the voltage. So something easy, plus minus 12.4, nearly 12.5, which is brilliant. If you have something like below 12, you might have a problem with startup. So if you do have, you can do more checks with the alternator or with the battery. But here we're talking mostly about power loss, hesitation, stuff like that, so rough idle. So we don't talk about no startup at all. So just make sure the battery is connected properly. Check the voltage. Now we're gonna check the voltage with the car running, because if the engine running is low, that might be indication of problem with alternator, which can lead to some other problems, like poor charging can put some load on the engine, because the alternator is working all the time and very heavy. So we're gonna check that now. With just the engine running, other stuff are disconnected, any electrical load is off. We got 14.3, which is brilliant, because the alternator was changed in the recent past. So you got 14.4 nearly. If you got something at idle like below 13, even below 13 and a half, but below 13, you need to check whether it's battery or the alternator. But how to check the alternator, that's what I'm doing now. I'm gonna put some electrical load on the car to see the voltage drop. So the load is on, and we got nearly 14.2, which is great. That's because I switched from 90 amps alternator to 120. So my battery, whatever is like load on it or not, is charged properly, so no problem with that. So we now know the battery connection There's another connection I'm gonna show you in a minute, but the battery at the back is fine, no problem with that. So now we are in the front of the car, but pay attention to this terminal, positive terminal. Thick wire coming from the back from the battery comes here and connects to the starter motor and alternator in the front. So make sure this nut is tight. If this nut is loose, you might have a problem with startup or some kind of electrical problem, so be careful. And also other things like starter connection and alternator, another two big nuts on it, so make sure this is tight. So here we have a crankshaft position sensor, the most important sensor, which actually deciding whether the engine gonna start or not. And another most important is the camshaft intake, camshaft position sensor. On the other side there's another one which I'm gonna show you in a minute, but this is also important. This is a 3-pin connection, so that means it's using Hall effect. You got two types of sensors, 2 and 3 pins. 2 pins are magnetic sensors. I could show you actually how to check that, but in this video is not about how to check them, because the way to check them is to have a oscilloscope, which I don't have, and using just simple multimeter it will actually only tell you if it's working or not, but the importance is how it's working. If you see a code on your scanner, something to do with one of the sensor, which is a crank or camshaft, please do read the code description properly, because sometimes the sensor is fine, but people going to mechanics, they changing the sensor and nothing changing, because, for example, if you have some kind of camshaft position sensor code and you just simply might have a bad tension on the chain, or whether it's a different car, you have a different engine, it's gonna be tension on the belt or something related to timing. So sometimes, and it's very common, if you have some kind of code saying that advanced sensor or timing, also with MAF code on it, that usually means the timing is off, because ECU won't tell you that there's a problem with timing. It will just trigger all these sensors. There's some kind of different amount of air going to the engine, because there's no full stroke at the time, at the revolution, so that will be tricky to understand, but be careful on that. So before you change anything, please do read, and that's why I don't recommend code readers. I recommend something better than code reader, and in different video I'll explain you why and show you some stuff on my Snap-on. Now something very easy, like spark plugs and coils, guys. Of course, spark plugs you need to change sometimes, check them if they are good or not. This is not about this. Coils, they do work or they don't work. If you have some kind of misfire on this one of the cylinders, don't change the coils, just swap them to another cylinder, and then you will see if there's some kind of difference, or just simply unplug them. And if you see the car is dying, the engine is dying, that you will know that the coil is good. If you don't see any difference, that might be the coil. Then you just change one, don't change whole thing, unless you got enough money to change many things. Okay, I understand, but if you're trying to save some money, that is the best test. Just swap them to another cylinder or different cylinder and see what kind of results you're gonna get. Like I said before about tension on the chain, this silver dome you see, that's the nut cap of the tensioner, so it's worth to remove it and check for spring tension and some kind of scoring on the housing. Is very important part. If this one fails, if it's weak or soft, you might have some kind of problem with codes about sensors of timing off and some kind of hesitation, rough idle, etc, etc. Next, most common failure of course is Vanos seals inside. Like we can see, there's a spare one. Everybody knows how this works. If somebody doesn't know how it works, I recommend reading some stuff about double Vanos. You got pistons which have some kind of, same as piston rings, seals around them which are like shrinking, wearing out over time and not performing great. So that's the one issue. Another issue is with the rattle, with the play on the bearings. I did 2 videos how to rebuild Vanos, no problem with that. You can browse my channel. There are 2 videos how to remove rattle and how to replace the seals. Another thing, DISA, I mentioned that before, but guys, please be careful with DISA, because sometimes if the DISA fails, this flap just breaks, the shaft inside breaks and it's loose. But there's another issue, people contacting me and asking, do I know something about the electrical connection between DISA and ECU? They saying there's no connection, or there's no ground to it, or DISA is actually acting weird, like it's on and off all the time when you pressing slightly the throttle. So it's kind of weird, I've never seen that before. If you know something, please give me some info in the comment for others as well. And also MAF, I did video about that. So I had negative fuel trims. It wasn't caused by MAF itself, it was caused by poor connection between MAF and ECU. You can check that video as well. A very simple fix that was for me. So be careful if you have some kind of problem, vacuum leak, something like that. You might try this fix, but it might don't work for you because there's something else wrong with the car. It worked for me because my engine was rebuilt, everything was done, replaced or checked, and that was the problem. Negative fuel trims caused by poor connection between the MAF and the ECU. But guys, please remember, there's hundreds, maybe millions videos how to clean the MAF. If you have cleaned the MAF and you still have some kind of problem, the MAF should be replaced. But how to check MAF is best is to use diagnostic tool, not just multimeter, to check which is actually working or not. To check the MAF, you need to actually see what is actually doing in certain RPM or idle, how much air it's giving. This 2.5 and 54 gives around 11 to 11.5 kilograms per hour. If you off that spec, that means you might have some kind of vacuum leak, or the MAF is bad and is lying. So be careful with that. I will explain you in the next video more about MAF and auto sensors, what they do, fuel trims, etc, etc. Of course, 2 of the post-cut auto sensors on top connection, check that as well. You can disconnect them and see what they do. And usually post-cut, they don't do much. When you disconnect them, you won't actually feel any difference. However, if you disconnect the front sensors, you should see huge difference. So how to diagnose those, I will explain you. And actually new fact about, maybe not new, but something few people discovered on the forum which I took part. It was something related with post-cut actually auto sensors, but about that I will explain in a new video. I won't be explaining much about vacuum leaks because I did video about that, about CCV, oil rings. Everything is connected to one thing: oil burning caused by piston rings, bad piston rings. But vacuum leaks, that's the most issue in any car on the planet. How to check vacuum leaks? You can use smoke machine and test that, but there's another thing. If you have diagnostic tool and you know how to use it, you can see what the auto sensor are doing. But same thing what I said before about this, I'm gonna explain you in next video. So yeah, if you do have some kind of rough idle, and if it's minor, it's not like bad, and you do have some kind of rattle from the engine, that's what I did the video about. Wear on the cam trays, you can see loads of wear. Even if you change the lifters, it might not help. That's what I did with my rebuild. I did engine rebuild and I changed the lifters. However, scoring and wear on the trays is still there, so I got some kind of small vibrations of the engine and noises of the valve train. So bear in mind that this part is very expensive to buy and probably harder and harder to get. So please do change the oil on time. Use good stuff, don't use cheap stuff. See the scoring? I think that's what's causing it, just simple wear on those, causing the oil pressure to drop and the noise coming from the valve train, usually especially the exhaust side, which is this one. That's what's happening with my car. But apart of that, the engine is running good. After my last solution, I found bad connection with MAF. But like I said before, MAF auto sensors, I will explain you more in details in next video. So thank you and see you next time.